Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The List. My name is Brett. Jordan is my co-host as always, and we are on camera for the first time so far. And for our debut on camera, we have a special guest. He was the Miami Dolphins' first-round pick in 1990. He is a seven-time All-Pro and Pro Bowler, two-time first-team All-Pro, two-time second-team All-Pro, and a member of the 1990s All-Decade team. Please welcome Miami Dolphin great Richmond Webb. Thank you for joining us, Richmond.
Hey, Jordan, Brett, how y'all doing? Good to be here. Thanks for having me on the show. Good.
So before we get into Dolphin talk, I do have to ask, because I'm a big college football fan. Okay. I know Texas A&M. What, in your opinion, what ended up going wrong in the Jimbo Fisher era, and what makes Mike Elko the perfect guy to get you guys to where you want to go?
I think I still have a lot of respect for Coach Fisher. Things he did at Florida State. Won a national championship there, and then even before that, he was with Coach Saban at LSU, and he was offense coordinator when they won a national championship there. So he had the pedigree, and it seemed like things kind of got started off good the first few years, and then it kind of leveled off. But I don't know exactly what happened, but I think some of the alumni just wasn't happy with the production or the way it was going. I think they were expecting results a little bit quicker than what he was able to achieve, and I think they went in a different direction. And I knew Mike Elko. Coach Elko. He was the defense coordinator before he took that Duke job under Coach Fisher. So he was familiar with some of those players are still on that team. But I hadn't met him personally, but from what I see, he really hit it hard in the portal and started addressing needs that I think could make a difference. I think we signed a lot of defensive backs. We signed some offensive linemen, and those were some of the issues that I think cost us games this past year. And maybe that's the first thing I seen. So maybe players weren't getting developed like they were expecting to, because we've always had really good players, but we just hadn't really been getting guys drafted higher in the draft. Like I think the type of talent we have. But one thing I think Coach Elko said was, we're gonna quit talking about Texas A&M giving the lip service, and we're just gonna show you what you're gonna do. So I think he did a really good job in the portal as far as signing guys, bringing along, and now he's just got to be able to get everybody to come together, play as one, buy into the vision, and hopefully he can get the program turned around.
Right. And we do have a website. Jordan actually did predict that Elko would go to Texas A&M before it happened too. So give my co-host a little shout out there.
It's funny, Richard. If I give you a little insight to how things work on this podcast, we are a Dolphins podcast that's having a Dolphins all-time great on the podcast, and Brett was most excited to ask you about Texas A&M.
and Brett, who is your team you follow in college football?
National champs, baby, Michigan.
Go blue. Okay, congratulations. They put together a hell of a run. They had a really good team, and it went down to the wire. It was a pretty good national championship game. Matter of fact, it was right here in Houston. So, yeah, congratulations to Michigan. One of my cousins, he flew in from Atlanta, and he grew up in Jersey, but his family is from Flint, Michigan. And so he grew up, his dad raised him a Wolverine, and man, he was so hyped, came down, actually got a chance to go to the game and then go to the team hotel and take pictures with a lot of players. So he was on cloud 9 after that. So yeah, he had a really good time. Really good time. So that's big time.
Yeah. Funny story. The first Michigan game I ever went to was season opener 2007, the App State game.
Well, don't mention App State to me. They put a knot on our head. I still remember.
Yeah, they aren't fun, but yeah, like you said, great end of the year for us, and it actually helped me cope with the end of the Dolphins season, because I don't know how you feel, Richmond, but this was one of the most fun I've had watching the Dolphins. Really, since you and Dan Marino was still here. I was like 9 back then, but what was your emotion going through the season? Like you see this record-setting team most of the year, and then it just seemed like once December hit, everything fizzled out. And how much of that do you put on injuries, and how much do you just say we got punched in the mouth and didn't adjust?
I think it was a little bit of both. Injuries definitely played a part, especially defense. You lose Phillips, then you lose Chubb, then we lose Van Ginkel, and then we lost X, with the foot injury. Javon Holland with the knee, he was kind of fighting through that. So really, on the defensive side of the ball, we had a bunch of injuries, and then offensively, we had musical chairs with the offensive line. We had so many different combination of guys, but for the most part, we made it through that okay. And then I think Tyreek missed a couple games, Waddle, but the offense was kind of coming back together toward the end of the season, and then you could really seem like the defense made growth once Jalen Ramsey, his first game. I mean, he just made a huge impact on the defensive side of the ball, and that's what we thought we were missing. And things were starting to go as everybody thought it would. And then, like you said, in December, I think first it was the Tennessee game. I thought that was a game that we possibly should have won. We lose that one, and then I think we won the next game, but then to lose to Buffalo, and then to Kansas City, and not so much that those are not good teams, but I think it was Baltimore also. But I think what really got the fans down was the December-January record, and knowing that we had an opportunity that if we take care of business, we could have had home field throughout the playoffs or even a number 2 seed, and to let that slip away. And injuries do play a factor, but I think offensively we just wasn't getting enough production, and I thought we could have got more production. And I think that's why it was so tough to take. And even when we lost to Kansas City, I knew we were injured. I knew we were limping in the game, but you just expected us to score more than 7 points or be a little bit more efficient on offense. And I think that's why it's so hard on Dolphin fans, because you could see that we were right there, and then it just plummeted. And I think that's why it was so tough.
Yeah. So, Richmond, and you hit the nail right on the head. As a former offensive lineman, as a great offensive lineman, you mentioned that it was almost musical chairs for the Dolphins offensive line this season. But that's not something new for Dolphin fans. I mean, we've signed free agents, both big money and small money. We've drafted guys high. We've drafted guys middle rounds, late. We've had different position coaches. It seems like the Dolphins for the last however many years have struggled to field a good offensive line. What to you, being a great offensive lineman, are the keys to building a really good offensive line?
Well, I take my hat off to the coach this year, because with what we had to deal with to have that unit perform as well as they did this year, I really got. I mean, I'm not beating up on them. I just know that the injuries did affect. Losing Connor Williams, we lost Robert Hunt for a little bit. Eichenberg, Teron Armstead, he was in and out. But I think the thing I was really happy about, and I saw it the year before, was I thought Austin Jackson had a Pro Bowl type year. I just think that if we win a couple more games, he possibly makes the Pro Bowl. But if you watch his play, and even last year, I think the thing that slowed him down last year was that high ankle sprain, and he couldn't kind of recover from that. But if you want, he balled out this year, and then so that solidified our 2, tackle positions. And at time Lamb came in and filled in a good quality backup. But I think the thing with offensive line is just having really good communication and being able to trust the guy that you're playing beside. And I had that with Keith Sims for 8 years. We played side by side, and you just feel more comfortable because you build that chemistry and you build that trust. That sometimes I could just look at Keith and he could look at me and we knew what each other were thinking. And when you can develop that, it makes it so much easier to get your job done, and knowing that, if this happens, this guy's going to do this, or that happens to him, I'm going to do that. So I think that's one of the key things. But as much, like I say, musical chairs we had, the guys came in and some guys moved from, at some time I think Eichenberg was sometime at guard and then he had to play center. So, for a guy to be that interchangeable, and a lot of times it was guys that were backups that had to come into the game, where normally if you're backup, you typically don't get that many reps. It's more mental reps for the backups during our team period and stuff. So for them to perform the way they did, I was truly impressed, and I took my hat off to those guys. But those are some of the things: communication and just getting a feel and an understanding of what we're trying to do, and as long as we're on the same page. That's vital to good offensive line play.
Richmond, before I throw it back to Brett, do you believe in curses?
No.
You don't believe in curses? So I don't know if you know, but the Dolphin fans have this conspiracy theory. There are two of them that I've seen. Number one is that Don Shula sold his soul to go undefeated, and that's why the Dolphins haven't won a Super Bowl, is that he sold his soul, which caused the undefeated season, and the Dolphins haven't had success since. Well, we'll leave that one away. The other one is that when Hard Rock Stadium was built, I don't know if you're aware of this, it was actually built on Tequeston Indian burial grounds. And the legend has it that because the season before, the Dolphins had made the Super Bowl and hadn't reached that success since, that the Dolphins were possibly cursed by the Tequesta Indians. So I like to give a little recognition to the Tequeston Indians just in case that exists, because I would like all that bad juju to leave the Dolphins. But something I noticed in doing a little research and prep before this is that the last year the Dolphins made the playoffs and won a playoff game, you were on the team. So I wonder if there's maybe like a curse of Richmond Webb.
No.
That because you left the Dolphins, we haven't been able to reach that level of success again.
I did just find out about they built the stadium. I think last week. I think my wife was reading an article or something, and I never knew that the 11 years I played there, that they actually, that was like cemetery or burial site, and they built the stadium on top of it. And I wouldn't say it's cursed, but I just don't think, if now, it's not the right thing to do. But, hey, when people have plans for designs, you see it not only with cemeteries, but, a lot of time they'll go and take people's property and they'll raise the taxes where they can't afford them or something, and clear it because now it's become a prime property and they want to have another use for it. But I just found out about that last week. But I can't say that's the first I heard about the Coach Shula sold his soul and excuse me, to go to undefeated. And I know he was, devout Catholic, was always, doing things to help people. So that's a new one on me. But we're not going to start the Richmond Webb curse. If anything,
so y'all can clear it up, you didn't curse at all.
Yeah. No, I didn't do it. It wasn't me.
We did sign him to Richmond to a one-day contract, I remember, so he could retire a Dolphin. So any curse should have ended right then and there.
No question. And you know what I tell people, I understand it's a business, and sometimes you got to make tough decisions. But they welcome me back with open arms, and I think sometimes you got to take the emotions out of it, because they're trying to run a business, and sometimes it's not going to work out between the player and the organization and snap it. It was never personal. They didn't go out and belittle me in the press and vice versa. I didn't do that. I just understood we couldn't get it worked out. But I got an opportunity to go play 2 more years in the NFL, which I'm definitely thankful for that. But when I finished playing, to be able to come back and retire as a Dolphin, because this, even though I wouldn't play somewhere, I still would root for the Dolphins, because that's where I spent the majority of my career, teammates, friends, guys that I just played with. So they were more than happy to welcome me back and sign me, to that 1-day contract. And I'm always grateful for that. So I definitely appreciate that.
That's good. To go off, we're talking about Coach Shula. Do you see any similarities between Coach Shula and Coach McDaniel? And if you were playing, you talked about you and Keith Sims earlier. How much fun would you guys have playing in this offensive system?
I think, I love the offensive system. It's something that's totally different. I think the thing that's probably similar to them is that they both definitely want to win, and they're highly competitive coaches. I think Coach McDaniel, I hadn't met him personally, but just kind of watching him, I think he's a highly intelligent guy. But I think he's more friendly atmosphere, with the guys on the team, this and that, where, Coach Shula, he was tough. And but I think once you kind of figured out he was hard on us, but he truly cared about his players. It was a different style of coaching, but he demanded excellence. He always focused on the little things, the mental errors, the penalties, the little things that could get you beat in the game. And I think that's why we were so successful all the time, because it's not making all the big plays. It's the little things. It's making penalties, whether it's offsides or, roughing a guy or penalties that's unnecessary. Those were the things, or not knowing your assignment, this and that. Not only can you have a play for a loss, but you can really get somebody hurt. So that was always harped on, and he took that real serious. But it helped me as far as, transitioning into life after football, because I still use some of those principles even outside of football. And I think that's why Coach Shula was so successful once he transitioned out of football into the steakhouse and all that. He figured out what worked. He was a big philanthropist, always taught us about giving back to people that was less fortunate. It was just little things, and he always encouraged that. And I'm glad he did, because I think it just makes you a better, well-rounded individual when you have an opportunity to be a blessing sometime. And it's not always about giving money, but sometimes just spending time with somebody, visiting a local hospital or people that's less fortunate. That means the world, and sometimes you can't put a price on that. So I learned so many valuable things from Coach Shula that I'm glad I played for him. He was tough. He was tough, but it took me a few years to figure it out that he really did care about his players. But yeah, he was rough. But once I figured it out, I was like, okay, I can deal with it, because I know you truly do care about us.
Who was tougher, him or Dan?
Well, Dan was cool until he got pissed off, and the thing with Dan was another person that's just highly competitive, and he would get pissed off, and you could see it in his eyes. And I tell people a lot of times, the first time we would work on the 2-minute drill during practice, and I think me and Keith was rookies, and the first time we actually had to do it in a game, it happened so fast, and we scored a touchdown so quick. I couldn't believe it, but that's what he expected to do. We were blocking, and then so we would go back. He would throw the ball 15, 20 yards at the field. So now we got to try to run, get on the ball. By the time we get on the ball, he's already called a play. We snapped the ball again, and it was like either the defense was going to have to call a timeout or whatever, because he would just rip a defense to shreds. And it was like, Dan was one of those guys that if you blitzed him, you made him pay. But if you sat back, he was still going to make you pay. So it was like, you just got to choose. Do you want to die a slow death, or do you want to die fast? When he was just, man, some of the stuff we seen him do early on, I look back at it now, I'm glad I was fortunate to play with a guy like that, because, I was almost in unbelief we scored that quick first couple times, and then you kind of get spoiled because you get used to it. But people would always say, "Why don't y'all do that all the time?" And I was like, "Well, no, we can't, because if we score that quick all the time, our defense is going to be out of gas. We got to slow it down. But when you need it, when you got a weapon like that, it's great to have. I can say that.
So you mentioned how it took a little while to truly understand Coach and that he loved his players and cared about his players. I think that we're in such a different type of society now and mindset now. Do you think a coach like that, who was so demonstrative and so tough on his players, but for the right reasons, do you think that would translate to today's athlete, or do you think that there would be some struggle in shifting that to today?
No, I think it'll work. I think you have to work what works for you. And the thing I can say about that, and I told my kids, I tell people all the time, I said, it's not that a coach is being hard on you, but if a coach is hard on you to get to get you to become excellent and be the very best you can be, as long as you feel he's genuinely doing that, you'll trust him. But if you think it's just he's doing it and it's BS, you'll lose the locker room and you'll never get it back because they won't trust you. And you can look at the success like Alabama. I believe Jim Harbaugh is one of those type of coaches. I think he's tough on his players, but his players genuinely do believe that he truly cares for them. So that's why they buy into it, because it's not him just being a hard ass. It's him. This is what he is, but at the end of the day, he genuinely cares about you. And I think as long as you get players to understand that, they'll put it on the line for you. So you can't try to be Jim Harbaugh or Nick Saban or Don Shula if that's not your coaching style, because it's not going to work, because people are going to figure it out and be like, no, he's trying to be something he's not, and then you'll lose the locker room. So you got to be who you are and let that work for you.
And then something else you brought up was that 2-minute drill, and being an offensive lineman in the 2-minute drill has got to be interesting, because you're setting up, ball gets snapped, you block, get off your block, you run up to the line, you set up, you block, run up to the line, you block. And I'm sure as a big offensive line, you have always had that kind of vision in your mind of being labeled that sixth tackle and going out and flaring out and catching a touchdown pass. So somebody told me to ask you, would you give up one of your Pro Bowl appearances in order to have scored one touchdown in one NFL game?
No. I would have wanted to do it, but I wouldn't have gave it up. And I give you a perfect example. I remember, I want to say it was last year. I think Robert Hunt, you remember he caught the ball and he tried to run. He got flipped. That was cool. And I met him a couple of times, and I told him, I say, I'm living my dream through you, bro, because I didn't get the experience. But I don't want to get hit like that. I just want to catch the ball and I'm already in zone and I can just put the ball up and maybe spike it. But to see him get hit, flipped, and then come down and still hold on to the ball, I was like, that was big time. But I think it would be pretty cool. Some guys have had an opportunity to do that, but I didn't. But no, I'm happy. I just, as long as we win this and that, because I would have hated to be the guy. They call that play and then Marino throw the ball out there and I drop it and I'll be like, oh man, it's just that would have been hard on me. So sometimes it's better not to experience some stuff, but kind of just live it out in your mind and say, well, yeah, I would have did that, but no, I'm cool. I'm good with that.
Now, hypothetical, you catch the touchdown pass. Marino throws it, you catch it. Mm-hmm. Is Richmond Webb dancing, or is Richmond Webb handing the ball back to the ref? What's Richmond Webb doing when he scores a touchdown?
Definitely not dancing. It's too many people watching. It's too many people watching. Definitely not dancing. I would say either handing it to the ref, or if I'm pissed off, I probably would spike it. It just depends on who we playing and whatever. Guys been talking trash on the other side. Just depends. But it's either hand the ball to the ref or spiking the football.
Yeah, you're talking about Robert Hunt. Of course, we know he's a free agent. That's my number one priority, is making sure we keep him, because, like mentioned before, we've struggled to find good offensive linemen. But to go with the guy who was drafted in the same class, you talked about Austin Jackson earlier, how he's improved. I think to a lot of people, it was a very pleasant surprise, because we declined his fifth-year option. He was unfortunately looked at as a bust for early on in his career. And then to see him step up when we needed someone, as you mentioned, we had all these offensive line injuries. I was waiting for them to call you to come in and play a game or two at offensive line because we were just missing that many people. What changes did you see in Austin Jackson? Because you even talked about how, despite the injuries last year, he looked a lot better. Is it just getting in a position that he was comfortable in at right tackle? Is it just a change in technique? From your point of view, what did you see from him?
Yeah, I can remember when we drafted not Robert, but Austin Jackson. And the thing I remember seeing his clips, very athletic, could move. I mean, just amazing. So he had the athletic ability. It wasn't a question whether he could play. The thing that stood out to me when we drafted him, he was 20 years old. So I think it was just he didn't have, I don't know how long he played at USC, if he played 2 full years or just 1 full year, but just get some more experience on his belt. And then I remember when he first came in, they had him at left tackle, left guard, and he did okay, but you could tell he was still, I think he was just a raw talent. And then once he kind of went to the right side, the right tackle, I think he started to find his niche and started working in and this and that. And like I said, not this year, but the year before, he started out good and had the high ankle sprain. But I think you've seen everything come to fruition this year. Is he just balled out, and I think he's found that comfort spot, the right side, this and that. And some guys play the right better than the left, this and that. But it took a little bit to figure out. But as far as the athletic ability and skill set, he's had that from day one. I think he was just a raw talent being drafted at 20 years old. Most of the times, you're 21, 22, and but he's got it together. But you're right, and that's the other thing is when you're struggling and you got the pressure of being a first-round pick, and everybody expects you to come in from day one and just boom, get it, your first-round pick. And it didn't happen that way. And then you can say you don't listen to what the fans say or the social media and stuff like that. I'm sure some of that stuff leaked back to him. So now you're fighting about what you're hearing in your ear about people saying you're bust or whatever, and you're trying to work your tail off to become, the player that you can be. I think it just took a little bit, but I'm glad he didn't get discouraged. He kept working on his craft, and it came together, and that's why I'm so happy for him, because a lot of people, they give up on you quick because they just want instant results just like that, boom, 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 and it didn't happen. But I think now everybody's happy with Austin Jackson.
So you mentioned Austin kind of finding his footing on the right side. If Teron Armstead does decide to retire, obviously opens up a big hole at left tackle. Do you think that they should just leave Austin Jackson at right tackle and leave that alone because he performed well there? Or do you think there's a conversation of, do you bring him back to the left side, which was his original position?
I would leave Austin Jackson at the right side. And the only reason I say that is Tua is a left-handed quarterback, so he's basically the blindside quarterback for Tua. So since he's so well and he's performed at a high level at that position, I would probably just leave him over there and look to fill that void on the other side.
And you're talking about switching positions. Austin Jackson's switching positions. Eichenberg switched positions a lot. Just from your perspective, can you explain what the biggest challenge is for an offensive lineman just having to move around, like technique-wise, just movement, anything like that?
Yeah, everything is opposite. So if you're used to playing on the right side, the plays that go to the right, those are your dominant plays. So on the right side, you're working onside, but if you're a left side tackle, that's your backside weak. So you normally kind of cutting off stuff like that, and vice versa. So vice versa the other way. But then when you pass block, your foot, your if you're on the right side, you're normally pushing off your inside, which is your left leg. But then you go to the left, your inside leg is your right. So it's different in the pass set, this and that, and I think it's harder for a starter because that's where you're getting all your reps at on that side. That's how you're getting your reps on that side. But if you're backup, you got to be able to kind of work this side, that side, or you got to work multiple positions. So a lot of times it's a little easier on a guy that's a backup because most of the time he's not going to play. And if he does, he might have to finish a game or something like that. But when you're the starter and then they say, okay, you've been on the right side. Now all of a sudden we want you to go to the left side. It could feel a little awkward. It just takes time to get used to it. Like I was on the left side my whole career, and as a matter of fact, it happened to me my last game in Cincinnati. The right tackle got hurt, and we had a rookie offensive lineman. So the coach sent him in, put him at left, and told me to go to right. And I said, "What? You want me to go to right?" And end up going to the right, and end up tearing my pec muscle, this and that. And so I just didn't feel comfortable over there because I've been over there for like 12, 13 years and to make that switch. So I think if you have time in the off season to make it, he possibly could do it. I'm not saying he can't do it, but when you get a guy that's playing that well and at that high of a level, I say leave him where it's at, and then you can get somebody to play that other side.
Do you think we bring Connor Williams back, or do we look in the draft for a center? Or do you give Eichenberg a chance?
I think we bring Connor Williams back. The thing is, they may, and the sad part about it is with him getting hurt, that probably hurts his value a little bit. And I think you could bring Connor Williams back, and we know he can play guard. We know he can play center. And so now you got two positions. Do you leave Eichenberg in there and let him fill one of those? Or you got two, you either got a left guard, left tackle to fill, or center, left tackle to fill with the snap back. I'm thinking with him getting hurt, unfortunately, that his market value may be down. So it might be a little bit easier to sign Connor Williams because he was playing really good ball, and you could tell it was a drop off when he wasn't at center in there. So hopefully we can work something out with him, and hopefully, whereas even if it's not what he wants, it's not where he has a bad taste in his mouth, behind the negotiations and stuff. As long as you can kind of work it out, because in the negotiations, rarely you get everything you want. The team gets everything you want. You got to bend a little bit. So I'm just hoping they can work that out and get him back because he was really played really well for us.
Yeah, it always feels like people talk about center being the second most important position on the offensive line, usually behind left tackle. But it feels like every team wants to invest in that left tackle, but they want to do the money ball for center, and it always seems like it ends up hurting you long term.
What the thing people don't understand about center is like the quarterback for the offensive line. I mean, we'll walk up a lot of times. The center will have to identify the front, and then once he identifies it, we make our calls from that. You know what I'm saying? He might identify who the Mike linebacker is, whatever. Okay, now we know who we got, this and that. So it's a vital role, and yeah, I played with some really, really good ones. Jeff Ulenek, Dellenbach, and then of course Tim Ruddy. I mean, that guy Ruddy was so smart. Went to Notre Dame, engineering degree. It just makes your job easier when you get a guy that's really, really smart like that and really, really good player. So yeah, it's very important. Yeah, very important. I've heard
some of the Patriot defenders say that Tim Ruddy was the smartest offensive lineman. Some of the defenders for Patriots talk about him like Tom Brady talks about Zach.
Yeah, I mean yeah. What they say, believe it. He was that type of guy. Yeah, he made our job a lot easier because a lot of times I can only see half of the line, but with him being dead center, he might know if it's an over, under, front. He's going to identify it, and like that, you know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times you don't have a lot of time. He makes a call, boom, we look and say, okay, we got to go, then we can go. So yeah, he was worth his weight in gold. Tim, that's my man right there.
And I think the one question we now have to ask is the one I think all Dolphin fans are talking about, probably are tired of talking about, is Tua.
Uh-oh.
Looking at how he's from your point of view, what he improved the most on, not just from last year to this year, but even going back to Coach Flo's last year, and what you think he needs to work on going into next year. Because it feels like, well, not just feels like, but the end of the year was so disappointing for him after such a great start, even though he did lead the league in passing. And Jordan and I have talked about in the past. The one thing that he and I personally want to see is get away from all those pre-snap reads, because it felt like towards the end of the season we were relying too much on the pre-snap stuff and not enough on improv or making more reads throughout the game. So I was kind of curious on your opinion on that.
Yeah, I always liked Tua when he was at Alabama. Watched him several times. So I was happy that we drafted him, and then, like I say, even with Coach Flores, I thought the first year I was surprised we played him that early, because Fitzpatrick was playing really well, and I knew how serious of an injury that hip injury was. This and that, but he came in, played a few games, and then last year, he was playing well, and then had the issues with the concussions. And then this past year, I think the thing was, I think he just became a smarter football player as far as knowing when to get down. You're not going to make every first down, get rid of the ball if it's not there, go to the sideline, but don't take those unnecessary hits from those big defensive linemen. So I was happy to see that. I think the thing toward the end of the year, like you said, the pre-snap stuff, I think the thing was, it seems like at times we didn't make adjustments quick enough. It was like, I think sometimes in the second half of the season seemed like the defenses were more in tune to what we were trying to do to them after like a couple of series or whatever. And I think, whether it was, shortening the route or like you said, instead of just having impromptu, go to impromptu where, okay, hit who's ever open, this and that. Let's mix it up. Let's change it up. Maybe shorten the routes or something. I think we needed to make adjustments and make them quicker. And I think that affected him as well, because sometimes it seemed like it took a while if we decided to make adjustments, and then by that time we couldn't get back in the rhythm of it. So I think with him and Coach McDaniel, they get together, and as long as they can have an honest conversation, I think like this year he can say, well, I like this play, or I don't really like this play, even though sometimes you got to run plays you don't like. But in certain situations, you can say, well, I like either this, or this. And I think that's a communication thing that's got to be developed more between him and Coach McDaniel. And he can look and say, okay, I can see why you say that, this and that, and mix some of that in. And you just got to be able to continue to make adjustments along the game to keep it going. And I think at times we struggled at that late in the year, and I think that's why our offensive production fell off.
So you mentioned it taking too long to make adjustments kind of on the fly. Is that something that's more on Tua? Is that something that's more on McDaniel? Or is that something, like you said, that it's about having an honest conversation between the two of them and getting on the same page?
Well, I think Coach McDaniel, either he calls the plays or somebody in the press box calls the plays. So I think that's probably more coaching than probably Tua, because if Tua was calling his own plays, then I could say, well, either he's not seeing something or whatever, and then there's a conversation saying, hey, I know you want to do this, but this is what they're doing to us. The safeties are rolling back, or they're doing, every time we do this, we get in this formation, we're doing that, so we need to adjust and go to this. That's a conversation that needs to happen between them, but I think it's more coaching, because I don't think Tua calls his own plays. I think they send the play in, he calls it, and then he tries to orchestrate it from that point.
Makes sense. So again, I want to thank you for coming on with us. I have two questions just very quickly before we send you off. The end of the season, obviously, it's noted that a lot of players get other players gifts. A lot of quarterbacks a lot of time will get their offensive linemen gifts or give them things at the end of the season. So two-part question. Number one, what was the best gift that you ever received from a teammate? And number 2, what was the weirdest gift that you've ever received from a teammate?
I think the second one is, I don't think I received any weird gifts, but I know Marino, he got us the gloves. He got us some cowboy boots.
The gloves.
Got some cowboy boots one year. I think maybe some little video cameras. And then when I was in Cincinnati, John Kitna bought us watches. So I always got really good gifts. I don't think I got any bad gag gifts, which is I'm fortunate for that. But yeah, that's what I remember. But yeah, anytime somebody gives you something to let you know they appreciate, what you've done, this and that's always huge. So yeah, I always got really good gifts, and guys are really good to me. So I appreciate that.
Okay. I just came up with one question, and then we'll let you go because we do appreciate your time, Richmond. Throughout your career, going from college, Dolphins, and Cincinnati, you can do your all-time starting offensive line, and they all have to be people you have played with. What would your starting 5 be?
He's of course, I guess somebody very angry.
Okay, so I man, that's tough. Me and Keith at right and left. I'd probably say Ruddy at center. Trying to think right guard. Well, it's a top. I played with some good right tackles. I played with James Brown, Ron Heller, and Willie Anderson from Cincinnati. And I think he's a finalist for the Hall of Fame. So I'd probably say Willie Anderson at right tackle, right guard. So I played Harry. I played with Harry, Big Gogan, Kevin Donnelly. Yeah. All I got is 5. That's a tough one. I'm gonna go with Harry. He passed away, so I'm gonna go with Harry Galbraith from the Dolphins. So yeah, that's my 5 right there. Yeah.
Had to give you a tough one at the end there.
Man, that was tough. Yeah, you put the pressure on me there.
I tried to have fun and ask you about gifts.
Yeah, I got to watch Brett. I didn't know he's going to do me like that. I got to send my people to come touch him up a little bit.
Well, it was funny because we have a Discord, and we were just joking around, and I was asking trivia questions like, did you know there's only 4 Dolphins of all time to win Rookie of the Year, either offensive or defensive?
I did not know that.
Yeah, and Marino's not one of them.
Okay.
So
who are the other 3?
Well, he didn't do it. It was Tim Bowens.
Timbo, my man. Yep.
AJ Dewey.
Okay, I know AJ.
And Dick Anderson.
Winning the Ring of Honor with Dick Anderson. I know him too. Wow. Okay.
But
cool deal.
Yeah, I love the trivia. Love all that kind of stuff. I love the list. But on that, Mr. Webb, we will let you go. Thank you so much. Is there anything you want to promote while you're with us?
No, man. I appreciate y'all having me on the show. It was fun. I'm loving that's the first time I've seen somebody use the stadium as a background. Look like he's right in the stadium, so that's pretty cool. I've been trying not to just lock in on that, but that's cool. It was fun. And had a good time. So thank you for having me on your show. And now I'm good. I appreciate everything.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you so much, Richmond.
Okay. Y'all have a good day.
You too.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. And that was Richmond Webb. Must follow for all Dolphin fans. He interacts with fans. He's such a great follow at Richmond Webb. And he does host his own podcast with The Reason, who many people may know. It is called The Finish Line, and that is PHINISH. So make sure you do tune in to Richmond as well as follow him on Twitter.
Brett, and we won't stay on much longer, and we'll close the episode on this. I was very excited to have him come on, but he he blew me away. I thought that was awesome. And shout out to Richmond Webb for coming on and having fun and talking Dolphins. It's always great looking back and seeing the guys that came through the organization and how highly he spoke about being a Miami Dolphin. That was, to me, the little kid in me going to Dolphin Stadium was very excited to do that.
Yep. And to hear him talk about how well he's treated by the organization too, like you said, we've had so much pain as Dolphin fans just through playoffs and tough seasons and bad draft picks. Just to hear, you just forget about how good the team is to the people who were here before. And I thought he had it great insight to so many players. Like it was stuff that we've talked about in our group. You and I have talked about on the podcast, but just to hear him say it as a player and how he spoke about it as a player made things make a little bit more sense.
So you know what the interesting note was to me?
What's that?
John Kitna gives better gifts than Dan Marino. John Kitna gave him a watch and Dan Marino gave him cowboy boots.
Cowboy boots are expensive. Like my dad gets cowboy boots. You can spend a couple grand down there. Zach, I know, is in the background down in downtown Charleston, which is about a 45-minute drive from where my dad and Zach also down there lives. There is a shop right on the main street down there that is nothing but cowboy boots, and they go from $200 to $2,000.
All right. Well, I'm sorry to Cowboys. My bad.
Yep. But yeah, like Jordan said, that this was our episode. It was a lot of fun. I'm sure you guys, if you watched the video, have seen Jordan and I just had these big shit-eating grins on our face the whole time. It was a lot of fun to talk to Richmond. I think next week we're just gonna give our grades and maybe start previewing the draft a little bit, right?
Yeah, I think next week is going to be the grading week. And then from there, we'll really dive into the offseason. I know we've talked and we have a lot of cool things planned, starting with the launch of us being on camera and really heading into what we're going to do over the offseason. And as we move towards what will hopefully be a very successful 2024 season.
Absolutely. Once again, thank you to Mr. Richmond Webb. My name is Brett. That's Jordan this way. And Zach is producing as always, our producer extraordinaire. He's down there somewhere. Remember, we are the list and we are watching. Zach, post-produce that music.